there is a commentary on the Chumash called the Hachaim HaKadosh. The Hachaim is always a commentary that's not the simple meaning of the Chumash, and it often brings in Kabbalistic ideas and other drush, medrash ideas, midrashic ideas. So it gives us a little deeper meaning of the interpretation. Of course, everyone we're all familiar with Rashi, which is the more simple meaning of the translation of the Chumash, but there's obviously much deeper layers to the Torah, and so I decided maybe we'll try to go through a few of the Or HaChaim interpretations of the Chumash this week, and we'll see how that goes, because it's a limud of its own. It's a learning program where some people try to finish every week the Or HaChaim, which is a great, really a book of great insight and tremendous holiness. In fact, not all books have the title HaKadosh to them, the holy, and the Or HaChaim, whenever you refer to him, you always say the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, the holy one. That's a special. He had a special gift, that blessing, mazel, that his name was the holy one, and he's given that title. So anyway, so maybe we'll go through some of the Or HaChaims on this week's Parsha and see how that goes. I'm going to pull up the Sepharia, just the verse, so you'll have the at least what verse that we're going to be expounding upon. Oh, for some reason something went wrong here. It's not here. Let's try this again. Now let's try it. Okay, so we have here the pasuk in the beginning of the parsha, and if you see it, let me see if I can.
Pasuk at the article.
Does everyone see this, or should I make it larger? Let me see if I can make it larger.
Larger.
Let me try to make it larger. Control plus. No, that's not working. Oh.
Pasuk. Just the article. Paragraph.
Okay, let's see. Is this a little larger, or is this good?
Yeah, that's good.
Why is this? Okay, so we have here Vayakhel Moshe. So this week's Torah portion, believe it or not, this parsha normally is a double portion, but this year happens to be, because it's a leap year, it's divided, and instead of having two portions, it's only one portion. And the interesting thing about this portion is that it's really very repetitious. It's a continuation of the story of building the tabernacle. And the previous parsha that talked about the tabernacle at length was Truma, and Parshas Truma spoke about how they should build it, and all the rules and the details of each item. And here in Parshas Vayakhel, it goes through Moses actually commanding the Jewish people and they actually building it. So it's more like from the future tense in Parshas Truma, or the command tense, to the Parshas Vayakhel, which is more like past tense. Moshe did this; he commanded them to do this, and they did it, and so on. So it's all about the past tense. So here we have Vayakhel Moshe. Moshe convoked, he gathered all the Jewish people, And he told them, these are the things that Hashem commanded you to do. And then what does it jump to? It actually jumps right into the laws of Shabbos. On 6 days, Sheishas Yamim Teyasem Malacha, 6 days work should be done. And on the 7th day, you shall have a Kodesh, holiness, Shabbos, Shabbosin to Hashem. And whoever does work on this day shall be put to death. So this is a very interesting thing that it just like juts into the Torah portion that we're really dealing with we're really dealing with building the tabernacle here. He's gathering the Jewish people, and he juts in with this laws of Shabbos. Don't burn a Shabbos in all you shall kindle no fire throughout your settlement on the Shabbos day. And then Moshe says to the whole community of Israelites, this is what Hashem commanded, and it's all about the truma, the donations towards building the tabernacle. They should bring their donations to Hashem: gold, silver, copper, or blue, purple wool, red wool, and fine linen, goat's hair, and all the other items, and so on and so forth, all about building the items for the tabernacle. So that's the the first verses of the Torah portion. And now let's jump into the commentary of the Hachaim. The literal translation of Hachaim is the light of the Chaim, of life, the life. It's a very holy, written by a very holy person, Rabbi Chaim ibn Vitar. And the commentary that he has on this week's Parsha, of course, he touches upon previous things, which would have been nice if we learned previous Parshas with his commentary, but I'll try to fill you in on some of the insights. So basically, he asks, what is this concept of gathering the Jewish people? And wasn't this done by all of the teachings of Hashem? So why does it say Vayakhel over here? Whenever Hashem wanted Moshe to teach the Jewish people, he obviously he gathered them together to teach them the laws. So he says that what do we have in the previous parsha? In the previous Torah portion, we ended off all about the shine, the ray that Moses let off from his holiness. It's Kikaran or Pnei Moshe, the face of Moses shined. There was some level of radiance, that some type of shine that came forth from Moses's face. In fact, to the extent that there were times when he would put on a mask to cover it over, and basically he got this revelation, he got this shine from being from receiving the tablets, the second set of tablets. And when he came down with them, he had this new shine on his face. It says Vayakhel Moshe midaber itam. A second. In the previous parsha, it says that he Aaron and the Bnei Yisrael, all the Bnei Yisrael saw v'hinei karan or panav, that Moses's face shined. And he brought down the second set of tablets on Yom Kippur. And Rashi adds that from where did he merit to have this shine? So it says, because Hashem put his hand over his face. Chapi alecha adavri, I will cover with my palm until I pass by, and that's how Moses merited this this shine. But anyway, when he came down with the second set of tablets on Yom Kippur, and Moses didn't even realize, but his face had the skin of his face became radiant, and Rashi adds an interesting thing. He says that everyone became afraid to come close. So Rashi says, look at how sin affects a person, that before the fire of the glory of Hashem was on the top of the mountain in front of everyone and no one was afraid. But when they did the golden calf, all of a sudden they can't handle even the shine of Moses's face. They're all shaking from the shine of Moses' face. So that's the previous parsha about the shine that came through Moses's from Moses's face when he came down Yom Kippur after getting atonement for the Jewish people and bringing the second set of tablets. So the Hachaim wants to say that the reason why Moses had to gather the Jewish people here, again, we're reading this first portion, this first verse, where Moses gathers the whole Israelite community because many of them were afraid, he says, because of this radiance that shines from Moses. So Moses had to gather them to come close. They shouldn't be afraid. And then it says, then he says, another point is that he gathered all the Bnei Yisrael. Why does it say all the Bnei Yisrael? So he says, if you remember, he had an insight in the previous portion where it talked about getting donations, truma. So over there, he made special emphasis that because the Jewish people was so wealthy, therefore, you could even take donations from the widows and the orphans, the women. Basically, there was like a special extra words that were hinted to in Parshas Truma, where it talked about the donations, where God implied that you're able to take donations even from people that normally we would question if you should take donations from them. And when it came to building the tabernacle, God said there's no limitations. You could take from all these people. And the reason had to do with the fact that the Jewish people were so wealthy from all of the wealth they got from Egypt and from the wealth that they got at the sea from the Bizas Hayam, it's called, from the booty at the sea. So therefore, it says, Kol Adas B'nai Yisrael, they gathered all of them and told them, of course, about donating, as the verses will continue. We'll soon see the verses continue about donating to the tabernacle. Now, then the Hachaim connects this another insight here, saying that why does it mention about the Bnei Yisrael? It sounds like it's talking about the men of the Jewish people. And he says in the Zayar, it emphasizes that he gathered the men and separated them from the women. Not that the women weren't part of this. On the contrary, they also were part of it. But he says that they also donated. In fact, you even see verses where the women donated together with the men. But what it means is that he gathered them in a way that the men had their group and the women had their group, and they didn't all come together. And that's why it says Bnei Yisrael, that instead of saying Kol Adas Yisrael, which would have implied all of the Jewish people, men and women all mixed together, that the way Moshe gathered the Jewish people, he actually divided them up. And they were divided. And that's why it says Bnei Yisrael, that according to the Zayar is hinting to that the men and the women were actually separated, even though, of course, there are laws of when you need to have separation, and and possibly you could say that it's not an actual service. They're not actually praying, But nevertheless, according to Jewish tradition, Jewish law, the men and women, it is appropriate to have them separate, and no sin of not only action but even in thoughts should come about. And so that's why it says the Bnei Yisrael, as it says in this fifth word of the Parsha, that all of the Bnei Yisrael. Then he talks about, then he jumps to the laws of Shabbos. And it says, Eila hadvarim, these are the things. And the Gemara, she brings the Gemara in Shabbos that says, if you look at the gematria, which is the numerical value of the word Eila, numerical value of Eila is 36. And then if you take the word Devarim, that's two things. So there's 36 plus 2. Devarim is plural. That's 2. And Hadvarim, because it says the things, so that actually is 3. So 36 plus 3 is 39. And that's a hint, the Gemara says, for the 39 types of work on Shabbos. And there's all different types of prohibitions on Shabbos, altogether 39 different prohibitions. A lot of them have to do with how do you, with baking. In other words, it involves planting and plowing, harvesting, and winnowing, kneading, grinding, all different types of baking, all different types of sifting, the different things that are done in order to bake bread, and then the things that involve building and so on. And basically it adds up to 39 different types of work on Shabbos. And those are hinted to in this word, Eila Hadvarim. So Eila is 36, and Hadvarim refers to 3 things, which adds up to 39. And somehow here, this is, of course, the topic of discussion, of why exactly here is the Torah, does Hashem want to emphasize the laws of Shabbos right here? But that's what's going on. Verse 2 is all about keeping the Shabbos, and verse 1 seems to be saying these are the things that you should do. And it talks about verse 2, on the 6 days the work can be done, but on the 7th day you should have Shabbos, Shabbosain to Hashem. It's holy to Hashem. And if anyone does work, they get the death penalty. So the Hachaim here, he brings down that he brings down a number of questions, actually. What does it mean? These are the things that you should do, that Hashem commanded you to do. Seemingly Shabbos is not about what you do, but it's about what you don't do, because the laws of Shabbos are numerous negative commandments, but positive commandments are minimal. You make Kiddush and make Havdalah. According to some, it could be considered biblical Havdalah, but the laws of Shabbos are mainly negative commandments. And so the Hachaim is asking, what does it mean? These are the things that Hashem commanded you to do. And that's seemingly not the proper wording for the laws of Shabbos. Now, he says that the Gemara mentions that if a person worships idols, it is as if they are a kofer in the whole Torah. Kofer means it is as if they deny the entire Torah. And he mentions that the Yidden had a big problem, because if we remember last week's Parsha, we had the Jewish people sinning with the golden calf. And this people sinned with the golden calf, and they worshiped the golden calf. And so they had the sin on the general Jewish people of idol worship. Now, what's the law of idol worship? we just said, the Gemara says that the person who sins with idol worship, it's as if he denies the entire Torah. So what this ends up, the consequence of the golden calf is that the Jewish people need to atone for all the sins, because as if they sinned the entire Torah, not just idol worship sounds like one sin, but really the Gemara says it really means every sin. So if a person sins with the golden calf, person sins with idol worship, they need atonement for every single sin. Now that's going to be a little hard to accomplish. So on this, it says that the keeping Shabbos is very powerful, and it's equal to the entire Torah. And by fulfilling the laws of Shabbos, what Hashem is basically telling us here in the parsha, in the pasuk here in the verse, is that these are the things that that Hashem commands you to do them, meaning to rectify all of your sin of the golden calf will be rectified. In other words, it's to do, not the fact that the mitzvahs of Shabbos are positive mitzvahs, but rather that they will rectify, fulfilling Shabbos will rectify all the sins that you've done by worshiping the golden calf. And so the word lasos, to do, sometimes means to fix, to rectify. And that's what it means here, to be masaking, and to fix up the blemishes that you've caused. And how do you do that? So it says 6 days you work, and on the seventh day will be Shabbos, and this will ultimately atone and fix up all of the sins that were done basically from the golden calf. So in other words, the story here of jutting in with the laws of Shabbos, now we have a little answer, an explanation that fulfilling the laws of Shabbos is a way of atoning for the sin of the golden calf. Now, we have been taught about the laws of Shabbos before. This is not the first time where the Torah is commanding the laws of Shabbos, but the point that it's mentioning here is that we're about to build the tabernacle, and in order to get atonement for the golden calf, we need to keep Shabbos. Shabbos is going to help us atone for the golden calf, and that's where we are holding in order for Hashem's presence to dwell in the tabernacle and amongst us. So we want to atone and fix up the sin of the golden calf. It's interesting that it says that Ashrei Enosh, praiseworthy is the man that does this. And it says, Shomer Shabbos mechaloloi, keeping Shabbos literally from instead of desecrating it. But there's a play on the word mechaloloi to mean machaloi, that keeping Shabbos will give atonement for all sins. And this would be the meaning of the laws of Shabbos right here, that by us fulfilling the laws of Shabbos, we are getting atonement for the sin of the golden calf, which is a very powerful idea. How exactly is the laws of Shabbos so powerful? Or at first you could ask, why are the laws of why is worshiping idols such a terrible sin? It's equal to all the sins of the Torah. And the answer is that when you sin with the idol worship, basically removing Hashem from everything in the world by worshiping an idol. So you're basically denying Hashem. And every mitzvah, the first, the main part of the mitzvah is that it's Hashem's command. So if you deny Hashem, you're naturally removing automatically all the mitzvahs of the Torah. Now, by keeping Shabbos, what you're actually saying is that Hashem created the world. Keeping Shabbos is like a testimony that Hashem creates the world, and everything in the world is dependent on Hashem. And so basically, by keeping the laws of Shabbos, you are bringing Hashem back into the world as much as you worship the idols and denied Hashem. Now you're acknowledging Hashem by keeping Shabbos. Now, how does this help with the fact that you're doing very minimal things to keep Shabbos here? It's really what you're not doing. So do you get rewarded for, you're not really doing a mitzvah, you're just not sinning. By keeping Shabbos, your main thing is that you're not doing the sins, the transgressions of Shabbos. So the Hachaim has a insight over here that keeping Shabbos is something that you actually get credit all day long of Shabbos for not transgressing, because normally the laws of Shabbos are they are in the normal case they are limiting every single thing that you can do, and so keeping Shabbos is one of those commandments that, although you're not actually doing anything, instead you're limiting yourself from actions on Shabbos. Nevertheless, you are getting reward for non-violation of transgressing the work on Shabbos, because you have to remain constantly focused to refrain from forbidden activity. So, for example, if a person just doesn't eat non-kosher, are you really getting credit for not transgressing because you're not eating any non-kosher right now? And the answer would be, according to the Hachaim, under normal circumstances, no. But if you're right in front of a McDonald's and you have the 99 cents for the cheeseburger that's on sale now, 99 cents in McDonald's, and you have your 99 cents right there, and you're next in line, and then you don't transgress, then you could get credit for not eating non-kosher. But if you're sitting in your house and you have no thought of eating non-kosher because you have no interest in getting the 99-cent McDonald's special, so then you're not really getting credit for not. It's only if you have the opportunity really that you would get credit for not sinning. And but Shabbos, he says, is unique because in order not to transgress the laws of Shabbos, you're constantly coming into a scenario where the laws of Shabbos are in front of you, and you have to focus and limit yourself from transgressing. So, I mean, it does say this in the Gemara about if you control yourself and don't sin, it's as if you did a mitzvah. But the Hachaim takes it in a very practical sense that the laws of Shabbos, they are basically it's so impossible to go about your day without controlling yourself from without sinning on Shabbos, unless you really are limiting yourself. That Shabbos is one of those cases where you're constantly fulfilling it, even though it's like the negative where you're not transgressing. It's all considered like your la'asosam, that you're actually making the Shabbos. You are fulfilling the laws of Shabbos and getting rewards for the laws of Shabbos. And that's what it says. These are the things that Hashem commands you. In other words, it's almost like you're doing a positive act. And then the Hachaim brings an interesting medrash, which I believe the Lubavitcher Rebbe used to often bring this medrash, where it says about on Shabbos there's a concept of gathering assemblies on Shabbos to expound in public. It's often done in Sephardic synagogues. You see, after they eat their meal, they go to the synagogue, and the Chacham gives a drasha, gives a speech, And I don't think you find it so much in the Ashkenazic communities, but it's based, seemingly based on this medrash, that Shabbos is a time to gather assemblies, Hachaim, Kehilais, and Darshan. And I think the Rebbe said that this could apply to like Masiba Shabboses as well, gathering the students and having telling either some divrei Torah or stories and so on, and making reciting brachas but for the adults it's like a farbrengen. People gather together. So the Torah portion, if you think about it, this is really the hint. This is the way, at least what the Hachaim is emphasizing here, is look at this hint in the Torah. It says Vayakhel Moshe. It talks about Moses gathering the Jewish people, and then talks about the laws of Shabbos, hinting that on Shabbos there's a concept of gathering. There's an inyan. There's an idea, a message of that there is an important lesson that we're supposed to learn together on every Shabbos, studying Torah together. And that's what it means. Vayakhel Moshe. Moshe gathered them, and he told them, these are the things, meaning this is what you should do every Shabbos. That each Shabbos of future generations, you should do the same thing. And then he says that this could be the meaning of Lasois Oisam, that it says to rectify or atone for the Jewish people, because by means of gathering the Jewish people together to hear a Torah lecture, their sins are forgiven, based on a medrash where Rabbi Yishmael teaches that when a Torah sage expounds on the Torah, I forgive the sins of the Jewish people. So there is such a medrash in Mishlei where it mentions this idea. So the Hachaim basically connects it with this idea of gathering the Jewish people together on Shabbos. He says it actually also is the concept of Lasois Oisam, to atone, as he said before. In other words, he's connecting both of his insights. Number one, that the keeping Shabbos, he said earlier, was like a way of atoning for the golden calf. And now he's saying that if you connect it to this idea of making gathering on Shabbos of Torah classes, having a big Torah class on Shabbos, that itself is a atonement, and it will atone for the sins of the Jewish people. And it connects it to a medrash in Mishlei where Rabbi Shmuel emphasizes this idea that when someone, a Torah sage, expounds on the Torah, it atones for the sins of the Jewish people. And then we have verse number 2. So now we jump to verse number 2. And verse number 2 is an interesting verse, because it does say that in 6 days, Teyaseh Malacha, work shall be done. And on the 7th day, it should be holy, Shabbos, Shabbosain for Hashem. Whoever does work shall be put to death. And he says, why do we mention about the doing work on the 6 days? Like, what's the importance? Why does it have to emphasize that? Just talk about Shabbos. Forget about the 6 days. And he says that one way of understanding it is that if your Shabbos will be holy, then the work will actually be done in 6 days. Because if you make your Shabbos holy, then you will actually get done what you need to. Your work will be blessed, and you will be able to accomplish what you need to, as long as your 7th day is holy. So how do you come to having your 6 days, you finish all your work, as if you make the 7th day holy and don't work on the 7th day? And then he says, or maybe what it's saying is that another little insight, the Hachaim often uses that term, like maybe you could say this, or maybe you could say that. And what he means is that not that one is more correct than the other, but that there are numerous layers of interpretation. And so he gives different options, so to speak, even though, of course, we understand that they're both correct, but he uses the term maybe, or yirtze, or maybe it means, maybe its intent is, and he mentions that 6 days work shall be done, but on the seventh day should be holy. And he brings out very powerful message over here a lot of people aren't aware of, and that is that what it's saying is that you can have others do work for you on the 6 days, but on the seventh day, it's not only that you're not allowed to do work, it's that work shall not be done for you. You're not allowed to ask a guy to do work for you. There are, of course, some leniencies when it would be allowed to have a guy do work for you, but under normal circumstances, many people think, oh, I'll just get a Shabbos guy. A guy can do anything for me. It's not true. There are leniencies in cases where you can have a guy do work for you, a person who's not so well. And of course, if it's life and death, you don't need a guy to do work for you. You could do work for yourself. But in a case where it's not life and death, so there are scenarios of rabbinic prohibitions and so on, or doing things with a shinoi, with a change. There are numerous laws regarding the laws of Shabbos. Shabbos is not an easy subject. It's a very complicated and complex rules. But the general idea that people think of, that you're allowed to have a guy do work for you, that actually is it's a misconception. And in fact, the verse seems to hint that 6 days, it doesn't say you should work. It says work shall be done for you, meaning you could have a guy do work during 6 days. But on the seventh, even that's prohibited. On the seventh, even asking a guy is not allowed. You're not allowed to have a guy do work for you. And that's what it's saying, that work can be done for you. In other words, it doesn't say you should do work on the 6 days, because it's hinting about a guy doing work for you. And it's telling you that, yeah, you could have a guy do work for you during the 6 days. But on the seventh day, even that would be prohibited. And even for others to do work for you, it's not appropriate. And that's the concept of amira lenachri, the telling a guy to do work for you, which is actually prohibited. And the question on the Hachaim here is that seemingly it's a rabbinic prohibition. And is this really is there really a biblical prohibition of a guy doing work for you? Normally, we understand it to be rabbinic, that rabbinically, you're not allowed to ask a guy. And obviously, we understand that Hashem gave the power to the rabbis to make additional laws to keep the Shabbos holy. And they wanted the rabbis to add these laws. And so it's obviously fulfilling what Hashem wants by listening, but normally we understand it to be rabbinic. However, it does seem that there is such a view that it is biblical, and basically the Hachaim is in this interpretation is following that view that it's biblical. Now, there is also a way of understanding it, which could be an answer maybe to this question, and that is that a guy that is working for you actually would be biblically prohibited from doing work for you on Shabbos. If it's just asking an outsider, that's another story. But a guy that actually is it actually makes a big difference. So basically, your cleaning lady, you wouldn't be allowed to ask her to do work for you, even when there are leniencies, certain laws that you're allowed to ask a guy to do for you. That wouldn't apply to someone who works for you. And a guy that works for you, that's hired by you, that would be a biblical prohibition. That doesn't have the leniencies of rabbinic law. And so sometimes, in my case, we have a cleaning lady here on Shabbos. I sometimes have to run outside to find a guy if there's a leniency where we're able to have a guy do it. So I specifically don't ask the cleaning lady. I would ask an outsider, at least because then it's a rabbinic law, not a biblical law. Anyway, it does seem to be a discussion, at least among the commentaries. The common understanding is that generally a non-Jew is only rabbinic prohibition. Anyway, so here it gives us a little understanding of why it uses the passive term instead of the active term, that work shall be done during the 6 days, implying that on Shabbos even work shall not be done for you, even by a non-Jew. And then the Hachaim touches upon, why does it say 6 days work shall be done? What about during the 6 days? Bisheshus yamim. It could have added the letter bays, and it would have meant that in the 6 days you should in 6 days or on 6 days you should do work, and instead it just says 6 days work shall be done. So seemingly the proper grammar would be bisheshas yamim teyasa malacha. So he says if it would have said that, you would think that maybe there's a mitzvah to work. If it says on 6 days work shall be done, then you would think that maybe there is a command that the person is obligated to work during the 6 days. And the fact that it doesn't say on 6 days, but just says 6 days you should work. So obviously then it can't be a command, because you obviously can't work all 6 days. If it would say on 6 days you should work shall be done, then you might see it as a command that during the 6 days you do have a mitzvah to do work. Doesn't mean all of the 6 days, because it says on it, throughout the 6 days you have a mitzvah to work. But if it just says 6 days, then it for sure can't be a command. At least that's one of the understandings of what the Hachaim, the way that he explains it. He says maybe you could explain another interpretation that he says as follows, that only if you keep the Shabbos will you have 6 days. If you don't keep the Shabbos, then the 6 days will not exist, because Shabbos is the soul of the world. And that's what it means in the beginning of Genesis, where it says, Vayakhel Elohim, on the 7th day Hashem completed his work which he had done. And basically what it means over there is that Hashem created the world to last only 6 days. And because of Shabbos, it gives energy for another 6 days afterwards. If we don't keep the Shabbos, the world does not receive that energy, and it will cease to exist. And this is the meaning of Vayom Hashviyi, on the 7th day, Shavas Vayinafash. It was Shabbos, or they rested, and the world got a nefesh, Vayinafash, and the world got a soul, and it was able to exist another 6 days. And so when the pasuk says 6 days work shall be done, but the 7th day shall be holy, so what does it mean? It means that all the work of the 6 days will only exist if we keep the 7th day holy. And if it would say on 6 days, you wouldn't have that understanding. In other words, 6 days work shall be done, and then it'll stay if, as long as you keep the Shabbos. On the Shabbos, it'll be holy, and don't do work on Shabbos, and then you'll be able to continue. You'll be able to have another 6 days.
Rabbi,
So, yes.
I think Mordechai has a question. There might be other questions people have.
Oh.
You should sort of.
Thank you for telling me. I can't see everyone because I have this share screen. But yes, Mordechai.
Yeah, you had said before about that a goy can only do a malacha for you in case of life and death. But isn't it that in a life and death situation, it's preferable to have the yid do the malacha to save the other yid?
You are correct. I did not say that. I said that, of course, if it's life and death, you don't need a guy. But even if it's not life and death, so there are scenarios where you can ask a guy. Sometimes you can do things with a shinoi. But you're right. But if it's life and death, you do not go and find a guy. You're supposed to do it yourself. In fact, the Talmud says an interesting line. It says, if a person asks a rabbi if they're allowed to break the Shabbos, so it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to the rabbi if they ask such a question. In other words, the rabbi should teach. Everyone should know that for life and death, you don't have to ask, that you should automatically break the Shabbos. So it says, person who asks is like sheifech damim, is like a murderer because he's wasting time. And a person who is asked, it's initial. A person who is asked is considered a disgrace that they didn't teach their community properly. So yes, you're correct, Mordechai. Any other questions? I'm sorry, I just don't see everyone.
Rabbi.
Yes, Panina.
I had a situation some years ago. I was staying at a woman's home, and
we lost you. I think you're muted now.
The home of a goy to wake him and get him to come and relight it, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't think it was sneeze. So so then another religious person who had rabbinic training said to me, you can go out and find somebody on the street, a pastor goy on the street, and they can come and do it. But now I'm hearing that, but she had to have her food cooked, okay, but I mean, I'm hoping I did the right thing and refrained the wrong thing.
We missed a few words, and so we didn't get the whole story. So it sounds like it was an elderly woman that needed food cooked for her. Is that what you're saying?
No, she could cook, but the thing is, it was Shabbat. So she wanted to send me, because I was there, to get this goy she knew to relight the fire that had gone out.
Oh, and I see.
I didn't think that was sneeze. And someone else suggested that I just get a plastic guy from the street to do it.
Interesting. And how sick was she?
She wasn't sick at all. I mean, other than, no, it wasn't a matter of life and death at all. It was a matter that for some reason the light blew out on Shabbat.
Right.
That she was cooking.
Right. So it sounds like it might have been like right when Shabbos arrived. So then there's a special lenient
during the day.
It was during the day.
During the day in Shabbat. It was before the midday meal. But she wanted to keep this.
It doesn't sound so simple to me. I mean, to have hot food maybe for Shabbos, a mitzvah, a tzarech mitzvah, and the food is cooked already, of course, so it's not an issue of bishul akum. The food is cooked. It's just
I don't know.
It's starting a fire, but it's making a fire, which is a daraisa. But maybe it's I have to think about it. Actually, it sounds maybe if it's the main dish that she's serving, maybe she has guests, so it's a main dish of Shabbos that she wanted to be hot. So that would be like the mitzvah, Zamira Lanachri. So yeah, maybe I don't know. I don't normally give halachic renderings, but I have to think about it. But maybe that's maybe there's room for that. Okay. So anyway, getting back.
But it was thought. I'm sorry. It was thought that the person that I would find on the street, it would be better for me, from the point of view of sneers, to go to somebody's home, and that was not.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
There's a couple issues there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, gotcha.
I had a similar thing where Shabbos started, and after Shabbos started, Friday night, we noticed that the plug-in cholent pot was not plugged in. Everything was ready and made. It was on the pot, and we had not turned on the electricity or something. So we had to go across the street, I think, and ask, not ask, but hint around. Yeah, hint around. because you just can't ask. You have to say, look
Right.
at that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh. So that was the psak that you're allowed to. Now, was it after? See, there's a leniency before the night kicks in, meaning before it's definitely night. There's a leniency, much bigger leniency to have a guy do malacha for you because it's called bein hashmashos. It's not dark yet. But seemingly, if that's your main, if that's the main course for Shabbos
yeah.
day, so probably, and it's also in your case, it's not lighting a fire; it's putting in a plug, which could be considered rabbinic. It's a discussion if it's rabbinic or not. So that might be another room for leniency, and the fact that it's asking a guy or hinting to a guy. Anyway, it sounds like it's fine. Okay, so bottom line, getting back to
One second. Anna has a
Yeah,
question.
oh,
I
okay.
was just wondering if it is any facts known, in any of the books or any of the stories that you're familiar where a person was definitely put to death for not following the Shabbat rule.
So
I'm
there's
just curious if it is any historical events that
yeah,
describe someone.
there is a story, and it's in the actual Chumash,
Mhm.
and the
Oh,
story is where there was a man who was a Makoshesh Eitzim, B'Yom HaShabbos. God just gave the laws, and some guy went and he gathered woods on Shabbos, and he was put to death. And so that's you can't get a better story than that. It's right there in the Chumash. What's called the
okay.
Makoshesh Eitzim. Yeah, so there, it's now what you're
Excuse
really
me.
asking is, it sounds surprising that someone would be put to death for what many people don't even understand. Why is why is Shabbos so strict?
Was he
And
chopping the wood or was he gathering the wood? I'm just curious where there's a distinction.
yeah, there's a different discussion about what it is, Makoshesh Eitzim. There's a few different opinions of what exactly he did, but one of the meanings is that he was gathering the wood, and it's in Parshas Shlach, and it talks about how they didn't know. It says the Bnei Yisrael was in the desert. Vayimtzu ish makoshesh eitzim b'yom haShabbos. There was this man who was doing makoshesh eitzim on Shabbos. He was which I translated to mean he gathered wood, and they brought him to Moshe and to Aaron, and they put him in a mishmar, which is like they locked him up because they didn't know what punishment he's supposed to get. And Hashem said he gets the punishment of stoning. And by Yirgamu Isai Ba'avanim, it says they stoned him, and he died as Hashem commanded Moshe. It's in chapter 15 of Bamidbar.
One of the opinions,
number.
Rabbi, is that this was Salavcha, that he voluntarily did this. He
Yeah.
gave his life so that the
Yeah.
Jewish people should realize
Would know.
how important Shabbos is.
Shabbos is. That is correct, or they should realize that the laws of Shabbos are applicable. And anyway, the point is that Shabbos is, as we saw in the Hachaim, it's almost like the opposite of idol worship. So in other words, on the one hand, a person who worships idols is considered one of the worst sins. So keeping Shabbos is like the antithesis of idol worship. It's acknowledging and testifying that God is the creator of the world. So not keeping the Shabbos is basically similar to idol worship. It gives us a little more understanding. In other words, some of the laws of the Torah sometimes seem surprisingly strict, but that is the concept of Shabbos. Shabbos is this. Now, of course, if a person does it by mistake, they don't get the death penalty. It's only if they do it on purpose after they're warned. They get warned that they're going to get the death penalty and they still transgress it. So that's that would be a case of transgressing Shabbos.
No, I understand perfectly well how important it is and how it really proves that, your trust and your belief by following it or not. But I was wondering if it was any cases that you know of that Sanhedrin or any other courts in Jewish law were looking at, because I'm sure I'm not even talking about modern time, but in history, it should be some situations where people were forced to break the law. I know for sure that it was done during the war situation, but that probably has a different exclusions, different kind of explanation of when is it considered your sin and when you're just simply, completely not, it's not your will that you're doing it. It's not your decision to make.
Yeah, again, as I mentioned, it's only applicable if a person did it on purpose. If a person if a person was forced because they had no choice, so
Then,
it's a matter of life and death. You are meant
yes, yeah, then
transgress. You're
yeah,
meant
the
to
situation
transgress
of, yes,
to
sure.
transgress the laws of Shabbos, because there's
Yeah,
only
you're
three.
absolutely right. Yeah, you're
There's only
absolutely
three.
right. That's it. Yeah,
There's
it
only
has
three
to be a
cases.
choice.
There's only three cases where even if it's life and death, you're supposed to give up your life, and it's not Shabbos. That's idol worship, murder, or adultery. So anything else besides that is a person is supposed to transgress the law. So that would include Shabbos also. As you know, you bring someone to a hospital on Shabbos, right? That's
Sure.
If a person needs to go to the hospital, you bring them to the hospital on Shabbos. So that's okay. My time is up. Zai gesund, everyone. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you. Thank you so
day and a
much.
good Shabbos. I don't see you
Thank
tomorrow.
you,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Good Shabbos to you.
Thank you,
Right.
Rabbi.
Rabbi,
Well, yes.
I just wanted to say that this was very interesting.
Yeah,
This
thank you
Vayakhel
so
class.
much. It's very practical
Yes,
too.
it was.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank